A week into the transfer window, Gab, we've seen plenty of action already. We talked about Coutinho going to Barcelona. Have they made a move for someone else as well this weekend?
Yeah, they're very close to locking up a central defender, Yerry Mina, from Palmeiras, a big Colombian guy. I think he's like 6'5" or 6'6" or something. He's 23 years old. It's going to be round about, I think, 10, 11 million euros. And that move will enable them, I think, to let Javier Mascherano go, potentially to China, get some money back there, get his wages off the wage bill. And the other big move that they hope to make is extend Umtiti's contract to kind of get their house in order, because he still has that very low release clause of 60 million euros. Well, relatively low, anyway.
Well, certainly in the modern day, isn't it? 60 million from Umtiti, of course, a French international. There have, of course, been rumours linking him to Manchester City. Is this just kind of the agent playing games, or is there a chance he may actually leave the camp now?
I mean, look, he still has several years remaining. He's certainly given the indication that he wants to stay. It's not 100% clear to me that if he were to move to City, he'd be an automatic choice, because I think the thinking around City is Otamendi's played really well. I think City may look for some cover defensively during this window, but I think Umtiti might be out of reach. Also, remember, of course, he's also cup-tied in the Champions League. Those are the kind of moves you generally see in the summer.
Let's talk about Arsenal for a bit. Obviously, dumped out of the cup. Alexis Sanchez, Mesut Ozil, end of their contract in the summer. We're going to be talking about this, I know, for the next couple of weeks. But out of the two, is it likely that either will move before the January transfer window ends?
If I had to guess, I would certainly lean towards Alexis Sanchez moving. Certainly, I think it's an open secret that Manchester City were very interested in him, and especially now, maybe with Gabriel Jesus's injury, the thinking is he might come on board. But then again, if you're City, you might also say, look, I'm running away with Premier League anyway. Why don't I just bring you in the summer, save myself some money? And remember, again, the fee that they'd be paying for Sanchez now is money that Sanchez could get they could save it themselves, and you get a big chunk of that in wages. Mesut Ozil, slightly different situation. The club say that, or Wenger anyway, has said that he's pretty confident that Ozil's going to extend his deal. But of course, he's been saying that for the last 18 months now. He's been linked again to Manchester United. I think United would have to shift somebody, most likely Mkhitaryan, to make that happen realistically.
Well, Pep Guardiola did have a little whinge about the Christmas and New Year fixture scheduling in England, but he did field a strong team against Burnley in this FA Cup tie, this all Premier League FA Cup tie. Yeah, there was a couple of changes for City, but it was still a very strong team. There are some out there that think the Man City coach is targeting the quadruple. That would be the domestic treble in England and the Champions League. Whilst want to win all those trophies, I think that is going to be difficult. Burnley themselves had to make some changes, but they are a strong side. They're well organised, and they're having a great season domestically in England. Indeed, in the first half, it was Burnley who were solid structurally and took advantage of a horrendous John Stones mistake. We haven't said that many times this season, but it was a whiff, and Ashley Barnes with a great finish. But it was a much different City side in the second half when they took the game by the scruff of the neck, particularly two players, Gundogan with the quick thinking on two occasions, and Sergio Aguero, who has been such a talisman for Man City with a couple of great goals in there. Leroy Sané got the third, Bernardo Silva got the fourth. It was comfortable in the second half for Manchester City. Some great football in that second 45 minutes. Some big games coming up for them, having now dispatched Burnley. They've got Bristol City in the League Cup semi-final, and then Liverpool away. It is going to be a hell of a 4 or 5 months if you're a Manchester City fan. Fighting in all fronts, need to keep all the players fit. But in terms of the FA Cup, this City juggernaut rumbles on.
Janusz Mihalik here with me with some post-FA Cup reaction. Nottingham Forest, not Arsenal, are the ones who march on to the fourth round of the FA Cup after a 4-2 win over the Gunners. Janusz, I was talking throughout this game to our good friend Paul Mariner. We know how much he loves his Gunners, but he was absolutely disappointed and kind of shocked that they didn't take this a bit more serious. Granted, there was controversy with the penalties. So how did you take it?
Well, anything that can go wrong with Arsenal usually does go wrong, right? So I don't know if it was disrespectful from them. Let's not forget, they know how to navigate this, the FA Cup. They've won it 13 times, which is a record. They've won it 3 times straight, and in the last 3 years, they've done that. I think it was misjudged in a way, in terms of how many, big players they left back home. Because yes, when you looked at on that bench, when they needed somebody, a spark, maybe, the Sanchez or Lacazette or somebody that the opposition would fear, there was nothing there. But I almost want to say that, why are we talking about Arsenal? I know it's easy, right? But I think this is Nottingham Forest. One of the biggest clubs in England historically, right? In the late 70s, of course, European Cup champions, of course. They've won the league as well, before it became Champions League, Intercontinental Cup and all that. And so they misjudged it because this is a championship opposition that has got history, of course, and not League One or lower team, where you can kind of play that sort of lineup. So yeah,
America got on the score sheet as well. So
Eric Lehigh, 29 years old. Yes, hasn't been called all that much to the national team. I think only 7 times since 2011. That second goal was special, but great for him, 2 goals, and great for Nottingham Forest.
All right, well, let's have a look at some of the other results in the FA Cup today. There you see another club in London, Arsenal's fierce rivals Tottenham, getting through easily with a 3-0 win over AFC Wimbledon. Harry Kane started. Janusz, bit of a risk, but it played off.
Well, that's the fine line. We were just talking about Arsenal, what they should have done, right, with so many games. Let's not forget, Arsenal's got Chelsea twice on Wednesday, the first leg of the League Cup as well. That's why they had to do that. But yes, I mean, the fine line for somebody like Harry Kane. Now, this is League One. It's like 60 places between Spurs and Wimbledon. Why would you start Harry Kane after such a long and festive period? So, but they needed him, right? I mean, it was 0-0 at halftime, and of course, he scores 2 goals.
Who doesn't need Harry Kane, right? Arsenal probably did need him today. Thank you so much to Janusz Mihalik. For more on the FA Cup, you know to keep it locked here at ESPNFC.com.
Saturday's FA Cup fixtures involving the big boys. Let's have a little look. Leicester away at Fleetwood Town. All the talk was Jamie Vardy going back to his old club. Jamie Vardy was unavailable, didn't travel. Leicester fielding a weakened team, which was quite a surprise, bearing in mind they're not in a relegation battle. So we'll see a replay there after a very spirited performance from Fleetwood. Bournemouth battle back to get a replay against Wigan, but they are in a relegation dogfight at the bottom of the Premier League. Coventry, once winners of this competition, they've had a terrible last few years, piling the pressure on Mark Hughes and Stoke City. Great win for Coventry City, as it was for West Brom. A big win for the Saints, and they don't get many these days. Man City, it was all about the second half performance as they blew away fellow Premier League team Burnley. Big win for Huddersfield, another big win for Newcastle, 3-1 at home at St James's Park. The big story at Newcastle, though, is the takeover going to happen, and are they going to get Mike Ashley out? That's what Newcastle fans want to know. Wins for Watford and then replays at the bottom. Wolves won't want a replay because they're trying to get in the Premier League. OK, they've got a big gap at the top. And Swansea definitely didn't want a replay because they are fighting relegation, are likely to go. Chelsea and Antonio Conte made a host of changes at Championship Norwich. It was an absolutely dreadful game. Bearing in mind Chelsea have a double-header against Arsenal in the League Cup to come up, fighting for the top 4 in the Champions League. That was the last thing Antonio Conte wanted. So that is a wrap of all your big teams in Saturday's FA Cup.
Barcelona with yet another win, this time over Levante. Janusz Mihalik here with me for this one. Janusz, of course we expected Barcelona to win it. This one, we'll get to the key points, but what stood out for you in this game?
How easy it was. Really, it was a training exercise for the most part. Yep. It wasn't breathtaking. It didn't need to be because Levante, for the most part, really didn't threaten. A couple of times here or there. That's always going to happen, I think, when you play against a team like Barcelona because they commit so many players. But for the most part, this was rather easy for them. They continue to go from strength to strength.
All right, well, let's talk about what everyone really wants to talk about. Philippe Coutinho, of course, that is where we want to talk about things. Dembele is back in the picture, though. So where do you see Coutinho fitting in? I know a lot of people have been saying that he is the perfect replacement for Andrés Iniesta.
Well, he is. That's true. But for me, he's a perfect replacement for Neymar. Right? I mean, they're really in many ways identical. Yes, we can argue who's slightly better, but I think they're very comfortable on the ball. They can beat you one-on-one. Obviously, they have great vision, set pieces. So they're very, very similar. But, you know, when I think of Barcelona, I want them to attack. Yes. I know Valverde has used the absence of Neymar to play in that 4-4-2, and they're more balanced, and that's all great. But if you watch Barcelona, if you're a Barcelona supporter, you don't want to be balanced. You don't want to be more defensive. You want to attack. That's what makes it special. That's why we want to watch Barcelona. So think about that. In a 4-3-3, I play Coutinho in the spot of Neymar more often than not. And, of course, he can play in the midfield, and he will be, in a way, a perfect replacement for Iniesta one day.
All right. Thanks so much, Janusz Mihalik. So exciting times at Barcelona, but for now they're celebrating a big win over Levante.
Arsene Wenger, over the last couple of seasons, has very much hung his hat on success in the FA Cup. Well, they won't be winning it this year. Out in the third round, not very good. It was obviously a reserve team looking ahead to the clash against Chelsea, but it's still a defeat. It's still out of the cup.
As you said, this is his go-to to keep everybody happy. That's gone. And we saw, again, when you make so many changes, there's no cohesion, there's no partnerships, there's nothing. You're just relying on an individual to do something. And quite frankly, he's completely and utterly underestimated Nottingham Forest as well. You throw all that together, that's what you get. A rotten performance and a deserved loss.
They thoroughly deserve the win. Obviously, we won't be at the end of the season looking at Arsenal and criticising them or trying to analyse them because of their lack of FA Cup success, but it doesn't help, does it?
No, it doesn't. But at the same time, for all their recent success in the FA Cup, it's not kind of eased some of the pressures under Arsene Wenger, so he makes changes. And you look at this Arsenal side, look at the team he put out, despite all the changes. On paper, it's a team good enough to beat a team sitting mid-table in the Championship with one win in their last 8. I think the players have to take the responsibility here. It was absolutely dire, and rightly, we continue to question Arsenal's strength and depth.
To be fair, Shaka, Per Mertesacker, this guy's got a World Cup winner's medal. This guy in his prime was a fantastic central defender. Now, when you're actually putting somebody out who you know can't raise a gallop, I mean, you're asking for trouble, and you're actually embarrassing the player as well. I mean, on a couple of occasions, he was left one-on-one, and it was embarrassing how bad he was.
And I agree, and it's not just about Mertesacker, who's going to retire at the end of this season, but it's about players like Theo Walcott. It's about players like Holding, like El Neni, who you would think are either trying to get into the Arsenal first team or trying to get moves away.
Hey, Walcott's been trying to get in the Arsenal team for 10 years.
Right, now he's trying to get away, and I'm not sure that this does him any kind of justice.
No. But the truth is that Arsenal is not good enough, the way that they're put together, to be rotating players. They're not good enough to be doing that sort of stuff because they. And by the way, Per Mertesacker is still around because Arsene Wenger wants him around. Otherwise, you find ways of, okay, this guy's not going to help us. That guy's not going to help us. Theo Walcott has been under the watch of Arsene Wenger. He hasn't developed. Rob Holding, he's supposed to be young and up and coming. He's not. He's not young and he's not up and coming. All I'm saying is that all of this is happening under the watch of Arsene Wenger. And he has had, over the last few seasons, the FA Cup to hang his hat on. And he said, well, you know, we're bringing trophies.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now you're not bringing trophies. So now what? Now what happens?
So it wasn't a good weekend for Barcelona because, of course, they won. Real Madrid lost. It was a great weekend for Barcelona because they finally got their man, Philippe Coutinho, 160 million euros, almost $200 million. They finally got it done. This after, Stevie, you telling us on Friday there was no way it was going to happen.
No, those weren't quite the words I used. just a little tweak to them. I said it didn't make any sense for Liverpool to do it now, and I was shocked when it went through.
What does this mean, big picture, for Liverpool?
It means they have funds to go and strengthen. Listen, to lose one of your best players, if not your best player, is always a blow. and it certainly doesn't help Liverpool in the chase for the top 4. It means that the likes of Lallana and Mane have to step up now. That is, of course, if they don't go and get anybody.
Sure.
But, listen, it means they have money. Again, we're asking a question of the owners. You know, I asked the question the first time they knocked back the Coutinho bid to show some intent, and they did. Well, now they've got to show some more intent by going and spending that money. And spending it wisely.
We'll talk about how maybe they can spend that money in a moment, but let's focus on what this means for Barcelona. The theory seems to be in Catalonia that Coutinho will eventually replace Iniesta. Can he fill those boots?
Well, I don't think anybody can fill the shoes of Andres Iniesta. Let's not forget how special of a talent and a player Iniesta has been, and when he and Xavi were playing together, what that did for that team. It changed the way that the game was played. It changed the ability of Barcelona to hold on to the ball in the way that they did.
By the way, how big is that smile?
He's all right.
Oh, look at his teeth.
He's really stressed out about the Liverpool fans, let me tell you. But in terms of what Barcelona does, is you're setting yourself for the future. Because as great as Iniesta has been, it's coming to the point to where Iniesta no longer plays a 90-minute game.
Sure.
It rarely does he play a 90-minute game. In fact, after 60 minutes, it feels like it's automatic that he's coming off. Coutinho is a different player than Iniesta, though. So it's not a straight swap. What I would do is that if I'm Andre Gomez and I'm his agent, you start searching somewhere else because you're not sticking around.
Poor Andre Gomez.
Yeah, I know you're not concerned about Andre Gomez. Nobody is.
Worth the money, Shaq, or is that irrelevant?
It's totally irrelevant at this point. And it's all about Barcelona and how they plan for the future at this point. Now, talking about replacements, I never feel that works out quite well. Cesc Fabregas was brought in as a Xavi replacement. But what Barcelona do have in Lionel Messi is a player that, never mind straight replacements, you can find a way and figure things out. You can change the way you play. You can get personnel to fit in. Easier said than done. I don't see Barcelona missing a step, but at the same time, I don't see Coutinho as a replacement for Iniesta.
But what it does for Barcelona, though, is not only does it give you depth, but it does allow, okay, if Iniesta cannot give us 90 minutes, we save him for Champions League. And now Coutinho comes in and plays La Liga games. It's not a drop-off.
It's not a bad option.
I mean, it's not.
Second most expensive player in the world
Hey,
to come
by
off
the way,
the
Coutinho,
bench.
want to come and play a couple of minutes here? I mean, come on now.
OK, let's play fantasy time, shall we? With Stevie Nicol, we asked you for your top 3 targets in which to spend all that cash. And who did you go for?
To be honest, I really... The Lamar one, I'm not 100%. The reason I threw Lamar in here is because when Coutinho was signed, there was big question marks whether he actually could reach the stage he's at now. That's why he's there. The other 2, I think, are no-brainers. Liverpool need a goalkeeper. This kid, no question, I don't know how many years it'll be, will one day be the best goalkeeper in the world. Try and go and get him right now, and then you've got a class goalie for the next 10 years. And listen, proper goalkeepers will save you between 10 and 15 points a season.
Right.
That's what Liverpool are missing right now with Mignolet. And Riyad Mahrez, listen, I'm going to go stato on you. His actual stats over the last 3 seasons are just as good as Coutinho's. Now, he's not as good a player as Coutinho, but the guy's a proven Premier League player who's a little bit special at times. So, listen, if you can get Mahrez, if you can get Donnarumma, then I think that makes Liverpool better.
It's a real sparkle in his eye. Should we bring in Gab to completely rain on your parade?
Yep, go ahead.
Right, Gab Marcotti with us. Gab, any chance of any of those targets from Steve Nicol proving true over the next couple of weeks?
Before I answer that, there's an important Coutinho point y'all have missed. When you talked about that big smile on his face, Philippe Coutinho, and it's reported in the papers on Monday here in England, gave up something like £11.5 million, that's in excess of, or close to $15 million of his own money to go and make this deal happen. So that's how badly he wanted to get out of town. That's how badly he wanted this deal to happen. And I think at that stage, that's really what put it over the edge. I don't know of too many other cases where professional footballers have dipped into their own pockets to go and facilitate a move to this extent with this much money in play.
So Coutinho hated Liverpool. We know that, right? So what about Stevie's targets?
No, but I was just going to say, like, it is really clever. In the end, it was a really clever move for Liverpool to get this fee. I don't think we can ignore that. Now, as for Stevie's targets there, Thomas Lemar, I don't think anybody's really excited to sign him. I think a lot of that is purely creation. Liverpool say they're not moving for him. Donnarumma would be really, really difficult at this stage, and would mean for Liverpool dealing with Mino Raiola all over again. I don't know that they want to open that Pandora's box. Mahrez has been mentioned, but then Liverpool have knocked that one back. Mahrez's entourage also knocking that one back. I think right now what Liverpool would like to do is try to bring Naby Keita in early. Of course, they've signed him for next summer. And remember, we're talking as if Liverpool are sitting on an enormous amount of money, but they also just spent £75 million on Virgil van Dijk, and they've committed £58 million to Naby Keita for the summer. So there's a lot of that money that's already tied up. It's not like they're sitting on some kind of enormous war chest that they now need to go out and spend. So my guess is they'll move hard for Keita in January. I don't know if they can persuade Leipzig to let him go.
Look, when you talk about PSG, people are always talking about what's next. Who's their next big signing going to be? Who's their next manager going to be? That's been the topic in recent days. For the answers to all those questions, we call on our PSG correspondent, Jonathan Johnson. He joins us now. Jonathan, let's start with Unai Emery. He's the guy in the job. What does he have to do over the next 4 or 5 months to keep the gig?
It's simple. Unai Emery has to take PSG to the Champions League semi-final or better, because anything less than that will be deemed failure by PSG's superiors. At the end of the day, they recognise how difficult the task is that Emery and his players face in trying to get past Real Madrid, two-time defending champions, in the round of 16 in the Champions League. But considering the money that they invested on the likes of Kylian Mbappe, Neymar, they expect to get at least to the semi-finals. And okay, if PSG reach the quarterfinals, it might be an achievement because they've gotten past Real Madrid. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be enough because they didn't get there to the quarterfinals last season because of the Barcelona debacle. So PSG really, Emery has his work cut out for him. He knows if he doesn't get to the semis, he's essentially not going to get a new contract. His contract's up in the summer, so it's do or die for him over the second half of this season. It doesn't matter what happens in the domestic cups. Okay, it's assumed by the PSG management that they're going to win the Ligue 1 title. That was always the assumption, that they would take the title back from Monaco after the disappointment of last season. But where Emery will really be judged and where he can save his future at Parc des Princes is by taking PSG to the semi-finals of the Champions League, because anything other than that is not going to be deemed good enough.
Jonathan, in your article about potential Emery replacements, you list both Antonio Conte and Andre Villas-Boas ahead of Jose Mourinho. Explain what PSG are looking for then in their potential next coach when they go through and make these lists.
One of the things that's really, really important for PSG's superiors is that the team continues to play attractive football. They did that very well under Laurent Blanc, and most of the time under Unai Emery, they've also played an attractive style. Okay, a bit predictable at times, but you definitely couldn't accuse PSG of playing and being boring all the time, especially since Laurent Blanc was replaced by Unai Emery. Now, one of the big concerns for PSG over Jose Mourinho is the fact that his football, although it may well get results, doesn't produce the style of football that they would want their team to be playing. And that is one major consideration for them. Another one is the fact that he's never been particularly positive about Ligue 1 and French football in general until recent months, when it's looking like he's maybe posturing ahead of a potential new job after Manchester United. And also, another issue for PSG in considering Mourinho or other candidates like Conte, like Villas-Boas, is the fact that they're looking for a bit of longevity, somebody who will be there over the long term. And Mourinho generally doesn't tend to stay at clubs for more than, say, 2-3 seasons. And I think that's why, particularly at this moment in time when you have all of the cards in front of you on the table, that it makes Villas-Boas the favourite to take over from Emery, assuming that he doesn't succeed in taking PSG to the Champions League semi-final or better, because A, he's free, he's available at this moment in time. Sporting director Enrique knows him from their time together at Porto, knows that he can handle a squad that's full of egos, knows that he likes to preach good, attractive football, but is also young enough to perhaps start a dynasty at PSG, and that's what they would like, and it's something that they don't think would necessarily be a possibility for them under Mourinho. However, that does balance with the fact that Mourinho does offer as close to guarantees of Champions League success as you're going to get anywhere.
Jonathan, thanks as always for the time. That's Jonathan Johnson, our PSG correspondent at ESPNFC.com.
We've seen it so many times this season, haven't we? Disjointed. You can't say that Real Madrid unlucky. Once again, they just weren't good enough to get the job done.
And at times outplayed by Celta de Vigo. And we shouldn't be surprised now, because we keep coming and turning and saying, okay, this team is going to turn it around. This team is going to get it right. They're too good to not be getting the points. But it just feels like there are too many individual performances that are below par throughout the team.
Yep.
It's not just one or two guys. It's easy to point at Cristiano Ronaldo because, well, he attracts a lot of attention. And he's not playing well.
He was poor today.
Yes, he was poor. But across the board, you have a team that has difficulties. You go up against Celta de Vigo 2-1 after you give up that initial goal. But fine, there's a reaction. So you say, okay, well, now is where Real Madrid just kicks on. This is when Real Madrid takes over. And it was Celta de Vigo that was creating the chances. Real Madrid are finding answers or trying to find answers on each other, and everybody has questions on that team. Yeah. So when one guy turns to Ronaldo and says, are you going to resolve this? Well, he doesn't have the answers. Is Bale going to resolve this? He doesn't have the answer. Neither does Modric, neither does Cruz. Across the board, it's a team that is searching, and there are no answers to be found.
It's not a team.
No.
It's a bunch of individuals.
But it was a team 6 months ago.
Well, unfortunately, it's very easy to lose that cohesion than it is to get it. And right now, there is absolutely no cohesion in that side. And quite frankly, I've always said that Real Madrid, regardless of how good they were as a team, they had so many individuals that would actually get them out of trouble. Well, now they're getting themselves a point. They're not getting 3 points anymore. Bale's 2 goals, as well as they were taken, gets them a point. Gone are the days when somebody's coming up with something to win them games. And this is no surprise. Ali was absolutely spot on when he said, this team just has lost it. This team, it's not a surprise anymore. And the biggest culprit for me has to be the biggest name. You can't go and accept the Ballon d'Or and then perform the way he's performing, because the guy that picked the Ballon d'Or up is not the same guy who's stepping on the field for Real Madrid right now.